This beginning part of the book of Acts is a powerful testimony and witness to dry bones coming to life. Over and again. Now, it does so with language that is sometimes off-putting to us. I would love to go back to the text and eliminate every time Peter says, "This Jesus who you killed," because his language is accusatory. And we would even say, rightly, anti-Semitic in our world to our ears. But the text wants us to understand the passion with which this story has grabbed onto their life. And over and again throughout the book of Acts, which it turns out is not a Summa Theologica, but a book of acts of faith, in which over and again the apostles do something that opens up an ability to preach about what they've done. Right? Understand the connection. It's not one or the other, but it's always they did something that opened up an ability to preach about it, or teach about it, or get other people to connect into this story that is over and again about dry bones being given abundant life. The tombs of this world are still being emptied, and the witness to resurrection is the primary mover of this story. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to share in Sally Sabino's memorial service. We gave witness to her life. We celebrated the resurrection on her behalf. Sally was the first person with whom I made a beautiful discovery. Let's do this. Let's go there. They don't know I'm going to do this. Who's in the sound booth? Is it Andrew? Can you turn the lights off? Oh, Sean knows how to. We're going to turn the lights off. That's going to be disturbing to you, maybe. But I want you to see something not everyone gets to see, and that the camera can't see, so sorry, online people. This window is full of blue and red windows, this wall, except for one. One window is all yellow and white. And the darker it is in here and the brighter it is outside, the more that window sheds a beam of light across this room. And if you can't read that window, what it says is, "I am the resurrection." Resurrection life. This is the book of Acts. Resurrection life in Jesus is about getting people to be beacons of light in the dark rooms of our world. And so again and again in Acts of the Apostles, we see evidence of death, whether it's literally victims of stonings, or whether it's this division of clean and unclean, profane and sacred. You could turn the lights back on. Thank you. And into each of these dark rooms, light gets shined over and over again. And it's very easy, I think, on our side to imagine that's such good news to have light shine into your darkness. Unless you've come to trust the darkness, and you've come to trust the categories and the walls by which we define our worlds. I don't know that I am the last generation, but I think I am, who can go back to biology class and remember having the styrofoam box where you pinned dead insects to a board and gave them their appropriate names. This task defines Western enlightenment, and it defines the more Western aspects of our own religious life, whereby we want to pin and label things, call them decent and in order, Yes, I'm calling us out, Presbyterians. And then know, because everything is now in its respective place in the shadow box of life, I can understand and navigate the world. When Peter, hungrily praying, is told essentially to pull out all the pins that have defined his life, it's easy, I think, for us as readers of the text to go, big deal, you've been missing out. Steak is good. Pork, good. You have been missing out. But we haven't been living by that set of defined rules, right? What if I said, as we have said here before, we're going to change how worship happens. No more will we do contemporary worship or traditional worship. No more will we do the things that define worship as you want, because God says it's all good and we should do all the things. Right? Or what if we said, we're not even going to worship in here? The most authentic thing we could do today would be to walk over to the Capitol grounds where neighbors experiencing homelessness who feel unheard are sitting and say, let's go worship with them. Now, I'll admit, that pushes me beyond where I want to go. Because I'm good and decent and in order? Or at least I'm comforted by it. I don't think I'm good at it. When it starts to be our sacred cows that are getting messed with, this text takes on an entirely different meaning. What does it mean to stop trying to define who's in and who's out from our circles of love? What does it mean to give up the rules that help you to navigate your life? In the language of the book we've been reading on Wednesday nights, to get rid of the inherited commitments and then make your own commitments. In this moment of this text, the more I allow myself to feel the tension Peter gets in, the more I begin to admire him. When I was scoping out the series on commitment, I'm always going to throw Peter in there. Because Peter, isn't Peter, right? Peter's just all 12 of them, right? Peter is the character the Bible has time to develop. But he stands in for the 12. Whether it's the John 6 text, where turning to the 12, Peter is the spokesman who responds to Jesus, or whether it's in this story in which it was one thing for Philip to baptize the Ethiopian eunuch in halfway between Ethiopia and Jerusalem, and it's another thing altogether for Peter, patriarch of the established institutional church, to say, yes, we're going to baptize Cornelius, right? Philip, we expect to do weird things. Peter's supposed to be the establishment guy who reassures us that Philip's not going to get to mess with the order of worship. So when Philip says, what's to prevent us from baptizing these people, we go, when Peter says that, Philip said it first, Peter says it second. When Peter says what's to prevent us, we go, Peter, don't do this. You're the one holding all the things in their safe categories for us. But if we want to know why Peter does this now, other than, the God messenger who told him 3 times you have to do it, we go back to that story in John that we started with, which is, this already, my favorite discipleship story of all. Because you have all these disgruntled disciples, right? In John's Jesus has questionable pedagogy techniques. He has preached a sermon that was meant to offend, and most of them left. It says, we know that there were hundreds of disciples, not just the 12. The 12 was an inner circle. So all these others, they get offended. He's changed their categories. He's pushed on their comfort zones too much, and they leave. And then he turns to the 12, which means in this case he turns to Peter, and he says, so are you going to go too? Now Peter could just say, no. That's not what Peter says. He says, where else could I go? By which I think Peter's saying, I would love to go anywhere else right now. I would love not to listen to you mess with my life and my categories and my religious upbringing. I would love for you not to make me let go of rules that have been comforting to me. I would like you not to mess with the sacred cows of my father's 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 people. But who else has words that give life like you? Where else could I go where streams of resurrection life are coming through all the broken places? If you could tame yourself a little, that'd be great. But even if you can't, I'm with you. Is that not awesome? Peter will fail to walk on water. Peter gets every pop quiz wrong. Peter is the guy who said, no, I do not know him, not once, but 3 times. 3 times God told him what to do with Cornelius. 3 times Jesus asks Peter, do you love me? Peter messes up so many things, but at the end of the day, he recognizes that I have to be driven by the center of who Jesus is. And so often in our religious life, we want to be driven by the walls we create on the outer boundaries of our life together. The things that we want to fight about, the righteousness and the legality and the good polity of exactly how a baptism should happen or shouldn't happen. We want to fixate and fight about those things. What Peter demonstrates so well is that not with ease and full of tension, he again and again lets go of those periphery items to find Jesus at the center. And when we find ourselves having to make decisions about to what and to whom are we committed, when the world invites us into tensions of alternating and competing commitments, Peter is the guide to us that says, you're not always going to like it. But again and again, remember, where is it that you find words of eternal life? And how can you become a reflector of the light of Christ into the dark tombs of this world? Because I guarantee you there was a lot of grousing in the parking lot after Peter baptized them. You know it. You've been in those little parking lot conversations. Can you believe he did that? What's James gonna say? What's his mom gonna say? In that moment, Peter knows they're gonna whisper those things. But do you know what Cornelius went away saying? How amazing to find a life and a word and a God who doesn't call me unclean. And one Cornelius is worth 1,000 whispered conversations. Where is God calling you to find God in the center of our mission and drive forth from it, that we might be light in the dark tombs of our shared world, helping everyone know that no matter what label the world puts on them, we call them beloved, even as God calls you beloved.